Moms Train Them Up Week 3. I'd love for you to take a minute with me and think about your friendships through the years. Think about what friendship was like for you early on in elementary school when you were first spreading your wings a little bit into the school world. Think about your middle school years, Lord help us, high school years, young adulthood, into adulthood. I'm sure you, like me, have had experiences in friendship that have been ups and downs, comings and goings, friends in this season, but not necessarily in that season. And maybe you've had the blessing of longevity in friendship, where you might have had friends that have lasted through the years, and what a gift they've been to your life. I know for me, friendship hasn't always been the easiest. I moved a lot, about every 2 to 3 years growing up, and was always having to make new friends everywhere I went. There's pluses and minuses to that, because you do end up having friends all over the place. But there were those times when I struggled to make new friends, where I had to deal with rejection because things didn't go quite as I hoped they would. But it was in those seasons that God taught me a valuable lesson, that He loves friendship, that it matters to Him. It's important to His heart that we have great friends in every season of our life, and we can ask Him for great friends. I remember learning at a young age, when I was really feeling lonely, that I could pray and ask God to give me good friends. It's the desire of His heart that we have godly relationships in our lives. But how do we as mom coaches teach our kids how to make good friends, how to be a good friend, and to have healthy relationships with those of the opposite sex? Let's take a first look at training our kids to be a good friend. We often associate 1 Corinthians chapter 13 with marriage. It's the love chapter. But I actually think it paints a beautiful picture of the kind of humans that we desire to raise, and essentially the kind of friends we hope our kids will be. In verses 4 through 6, it says, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. When I was pregnant with my kids, there are a few prayers I prayed over them then that I still pray over them now. I pray that they would love God, love people, love God's house, hate what's evil, and love what is good. By teaching our kids how to show love to others, to love the right things, to hate what's evil, we're instilling in them godly character and values, and essentially teaching them how to be good friends. If we're intentionally trying to raise kids who are patient, kind, humble, honoring of others, unselfish, quick to forgive, loving what's good, etc., then these are the traits that they're going to reflect back to others in their friendships. Training our kids to be good friends begins in our home. Our homes are our ultimate training ground. They first have to learn how to be respectful and kind and honoring to their parents, to their siblings, to their grandparents, to those who live in their home, and those who are in their inner circle who they do life with. We also need to train our kids to choose good friends. There's no doubt that God's word is very clear that we need to take friendship seriously and choose very wisely who we do life with, who we bring into our inner circle and outer circle. Proverbs 12:26 says, the righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. Proverbs 13:20 says, walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm. 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. Training our kids to set boundaries is the key to teaching them how to choose their friends wisely. What is a boundary? A boundary is simply a limit. It's our responsibility as parents to teach our kids to set limits on who they will spend their time with and on what they will choose to do with those friends. We have to teach them to set boundaries in many areas of their lives, teaching them what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and who they need to connect their lives to. If a friend is trying to get them to do something that violates a core value that we have built our home upon, and this is happening repetitively despite their attempts to tell them, I'm not doing that, or I don't believe that's right, then our kids need to have that unction in them, that knowing deep down inside that this is not someone I need to be doing life with. It actually all goes back to, once again, communication, talking to our kids, talking to them about what's right, what's wrong, who is right, who is wrong. My twins are naturally accountability partners to each other. They love to make sure that I'm in the loop on everything that either sister is up to. And they came home from school not long ago, and one of the sisters told me that the other sister was hanging out with the sassy girls at recess who were being mean and unkind to all the other kids. And of course I knew I can't let this go. I'm going, need to talk to her about this. But I decided this could be a good teachable moment. So what I did was I started asking her questions. I said, do you think it's wise for you to be spending your time at recess with girls who are being unkind? Is that who you are? Do we, once again, goes back to values too. Do we value meanness or kindness in our house? We value kindness, treating others with kindness and respect. So should you be connecting yourself with people who are not being kind to others? It helped her draw her own conclusions that, I probably should find other girls to play with at recess. But it's great for them to have those moments where they can process who are the best friends for them. We also have to teach our kids to have healthy relationships with the opposite sex. And I'm going to direct you back again to a familiar topic, continual conversation, talking to your kids. We need to be intentional about talking to them about their dating relationships. We've told our girls since they were very little that one day, and my son as well, one day when they start dating, when you start dating that boy or girl, you're going to bring them home and mom and dad are going to get to meet them, and we're going to get to help you decide whether or not they're the right person for you. When you decide that you may want to marry that person, we're going to help you choose your husband or your wife. We wanted them to know early on, we're in this thing with you. You're not in this thing alone, and we want to be a part of your dating relationships. It's all about having a relationship with your kids, not just, I know I'm using the words teaching and training a lot throughout our lessons and our time together, but it really goes back to the ultimate heart of this is to develop a good relationship with your kids, to know them, to do life with them, spend quality time with them so that you have teachable moments that can arise. You have opportunities for conversation with them to really get to know them and to be their safe place. It's also, as far as teaching our kids to have great relationships with those of the opposite sex, this also goes back to our previous lesson about identity. It's about them having a good awareness of themselves, about who God has called them to be and about what He's calling them to do. If they have a firm grasp on the vision that God has for their life, then they're going to most likely not want to attach themselves to someone who's running in the opposite direction as them. They will likely want to choose to do life with someone who is running in the same direction because they know they're on a mission and they don't want to get distracted and go sideways from that vision, but stay on that path. As our kids get older, I find that it's helpful to twist the conversation to a question-asking moment, as I modeled there for my daughter, where I ask questions that are leading questions and help them come to their own conclusions, rather than always telling them what to do. My husband, he counsels people often, and he uses this tactic with college-age students a lot. It's really helpful. There are some questions that we can encourage our kids to ask themselves to determine whether or not they are mature enough to begin dating. One great question is that they need to ask themselves is, what is the definition of dating? What is dating? What does that mean? If the definition of dating is to be able to leave the house and go somewhere together alone and have fun, or with friends and have fun, even better, they at least need to be able to get in a car and leave your house together, right? So the driving component does come in, and I do feel like that's an important point to prove with your kids. If you're not old enough to drive, then can you really go on a date? My 14-year-old son, I asked him recently, I said, what do you think about dating at 14? And he was like, Mom, it's so stupid. If you date at 14, it's really a play date. There's no way that you dropping me off at my girlfriend's house is dating. And I was like, amen, I'm right there with you. Moving on. He had a point. He got it that I'm not ready to date yet because I can't even go on a date. He knew the definition of a date. Secondly, another question that our kids need to ask themselves is, what's the purpose behind it? What is the purpose of dating? That's a good conclusion they should come to before they begin dating. Why am I going to begin dating? Well, it is to get to know someone. It is to have fun and do life with people and enjoy life. But it also should be purposeful. It is to get to know someone, and we would hope that they would at least have a vision for marriage, that this is about getting to know someone who could potentially become a spouse one day, your husband or wife. And if they are someone who doesn't fit that category, clearly, we don't get along very well, we are way too different and don't have enough in common, or clearly they see themselves in a totally different walk of life than where I'm going, then if they have that vision, once again, they'll know this is probably not the best for me. It doesn't fit in with the purpose behind why I want to be in a dating relationship. Another great question they should ask themselves is, what boundaries do you need to set in order to have a healthy, godly dating relationship? Our kids need to determine boundaries before they begin dating. They need to really think about 3 core areas. Physical intimacy. How physically involved am I going to get with someone who I'm dating? What is the boundary I believe God's choosing me to set? They need to think through those boundaries. They also need to think about technology. What is a healthy boundary that should be in place for how much time we're together on technology, for the pictures we send to each other, for what we text about? We need to talk about sexting. What is that? What's appropriate? What's not appropriate? All of those things that help our kids set themselves up for success. They also need to think about time. What boundaries do you need to put in place that make sure you're not spending too much time together, where you are completely consumed by one another and you lose track of all the other relationships that God has brought into your life. A final question I think our kids need to ask themselves is, how are you going to bring Dad and I into your relationship? I think it's really important that our kids know that we want to do life with this person too. We want you to bring them around. They need to be in our home. We often say when you're marrying someone, you're marrying their family. And I think in a way, when your child is dating someone, they should be dating the family as well. They need to be spending time with the family. In that context, you get to know someone a little bit differently. I mean, if my son is going over to the home of his girlfriend and he's watching how she interacts with her parents, there may be some red flags that come up that might confirm, ooh, I don't like what I'm seeing here. Our home is our comfort zone, so there are going to be parts of us that come out in a comfortable environment that don't come out in others. And in the same way, if she is at our house interacting with us and he sees maybe she doesn't show much respect, or he doesn't like how she carries herself in our home, those are good ways for them to gauge whether or not this is a person they really need to be dating. You may be noticing an important theme throughout our time together today, and that's the fact that we need to approach dating with intentionality. I really believe it's important that we think this thing through, that we don't just throw our kids out there to figure out this big, wide world that can be very damaging. As we know, relationships with the opposite sex can cause hurt and pain in our lives that we may carry for years, and we do want to protect our kids. We do want to set them up for success. So by approaching dating with intentionality, we're helping them win in this area and helping them thrive and grow in their walk with Jesus too. I want to end with a quick encouragement for you, Mom. As we've talked about in recent weeks, we are models for our kids. And I think it's good sometimes to stop and evaluate, how well am I modeling healthy relationships for my kids, in my marriage, in my friendships, if you are single, in your dating relationships. Ephesians 5:1 says, "Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God." Are you following in Christ's example? It's not going to be perfect. I know, we're all going to make mistakes. But would you say, in general, in the way that you treat your spouse, the way the types of friendships you keep in your life, and the way you treat your friends, are you showing your kids what it's like to have healthy relationships? If not, it's never too late to ask God to give you wisdom and courage to make the changes that you need to make today to build strength in this area of your life. Maybe you're watching this video and you're thinking, man, I'm just really lonely. I need friends. I don't have enough healthy friendships in my life. Well, let me encourage you and challenge you to take a step of faith this week. Exchange a number with one of the moms at your table and go do something together. Go get a coffee. Go take a run early in the morning together, or have a play date with your kids. Go on a dinner date, whatever it looks like. Step out in faith. Approach another mom. Everyone needs more friends, and you never know the blessing God will bring into your life as you develop new relationships with each other. Proverbs 27:9 says, "Perfume and incense bring joy to the heart, and the pleasantness of a friend springs from their heartfelt advice." Great friends are a gift from God.